started off slow the first 3-4 rounds, and then I started taking over middle of the rounds, and then the late rounds taking over was the boss in the fight. You know, obviously the knockdown must have made it a little closer, and then the point got taken off from me for some reason. I don't know why. The referee took a point off me at the end of the round, so obviously that made the scorecards a little closer. But you know, I thought the right man won in the end. You know, but yeah, I'm not happy with my performance, but you know, I still thought I won the fight.
Right, anything from Todd? No? Yeah.
Listen, this was an incredible atmosphere, an incredible night. And I've been in the business since 1993, and we have nights that everyone in the room feels differently about. Two guys put on an incredible performance. Not saying it was the most telegenic fight, stylistically, we had two southpaws. It was awkward, a lot of holding. This is the sport of boxing, right? You know, I said before the fight, I thought Josh, they said, what is he gonna do after? I said, it looks like he may struggle with the weight because of the weigh-in, and we'll see after the fight. Thought he was flat, he said, just a second ago, it wasn't his best performance. Both guys, Catterall made a name for himself. He did what he had to do, impressed a lot of people in this room and in the arena and on television tonight. And Josh did as much as he did. So it was a tough night for some of the fans that thought it was a bad decision, but I think, you know, we kind of go and move forward and try to make everybody a better situation for boxing.
I don't think it was a bad decision. I think it was because he did better than everyone else was expecting. So because he did better than everyone else was expecting, they automatically think he won the fight. But he never won the fight. The right man won the fight. But it was a far from a marquee performance from myself. But the right man won the fight, and you know, it is what it is. You're always going to have doubters, but you know, it wasn't my best performance, but the right man won the fight, and I think that's more what the case is. Because he did better than everyone was expecting, they automatically think he won the fight, but he never won the fight. I scored the bigger shots, was the boss from midway through to the end, and you know, with the point getting taken off of me as well, made the scorecards a lot closer, but I definitely won the fight.
Yeah, look, it's just really going over the points that Todd and Josh have just gone over there. You know, even the great Floyd Mayweather had a night where people thought that the opponent had won. But I think there's definitely an element of what Josh said, but that's not taking anything away from Jack and his team. You know, brilliant performance from those guys as well. And I think something that you've got to credit and something that you don't see in boxing so much these days is, you know, Josh knew that one more fight at 140 was pushing it. We already knew that. Constantly being asked that question because everybody in here knew that. But he was a man of his word. Jack gave him an opportunity to fight for the undisputed, and Josh wanted to be a man of his word. One, he wanted to have the homecoming, which he would have had anyway moving up. But he wanted to be a man of his word and give Jack his opportunity, and he done that. And that says a lot about the character of Josh. He put a lot of pressure on himself, wanting to perform. You know, I think that I actually said this a few times going into the fight, that the home advantage in the crowd would be an advantage and a disadvantage at different points in the fight. And I think that's what we saw. So yeah, I suppose if there's any questions, then...
Ben, question,
Oh, hi there, Carl from the Box Voice. Up about the halfway stage, you seem to be trying to G up the crowd. Did you feel the fight was slipping away from Josh at that point, and that you needed the crowd to maybe sway things or lift him?
No, not at all. I think that there was an element of, Josh, like I said, Josh putting so much pressure on himself. I think that once he started gaining momentum, I wanted to keep building that momentum. And like I said, going into the fight, I felt like the crowd was actually going to be a disadvantage in the early part of the fight, and I felt like it was going to be an advantage in the second half of the fight, and I think that's what we saw.
Josh, right?
Hey Josh, with people saying it's a close fight, would you consider a rematch or would you want to move up?
I'll be moving up. That was my last fight at 140. We said that before this fight. You know, I did make the weight. I made the weight fine. I made the weight fine, but you could see on the scales yesterday that how gone I was. But I made the weight good, and that's thanks to John Poppy over there. My nutritionist made it so much easier. The last two weight times I've made the weight has been really easy, but you know, getting the recovery from 140 back to rehydration, back to feeling fully fit again was was, you know, it's hard. You know, it's hard. You know, they're all getting bigger and stronger. And yeah, it was maybe one too many fights at 140. But you know, I made a deal with Jack for me to get the fight for the undisputed title against Ramirez. On the back of it, I'd give Jack his chance at the shot of the belts, and I did that. You know, and fair play to Jack. He turned up and he gave it his best shot, and he was very competitive in the fight, but he never won the fight. You know, he did better than he expected, I think, and you know, but he never won the fight. The right man won the fight, but you know, that'll be my last performance at 140 for sure.
Josh Ridley.
Josh, I think the consensus at ringside was that Jack won it by 3, maybe even 4 rounds. There was talk of, but it was that wide. Was it the toughest fight of your career?
Definitely not. No, I don't think it was that tough, to be honest. I didn't think it was that tough, to be honest. No, I don't see how he won by 3, maybe 4 rounds. I thought I won the fight.
I get one for Josh and Ben.
Yeah, just same question for both of you, please. Could you give me a sense of where in the ring you felt it went right and where you felt it went wrong?
If you want. I thought I won the fight when I was pushing him on the back foot, making him face, putting him on the back and skirting around the edge of the ring, and I was being the boss in there. That's why I thought I won the fight, and you know, hitting him with the better shots, the bigger shots.
Yeah, there was definitely an element of, like I said, there was a lot of pressure. Josh didn't want to make any mistakes. I think he was slightly too hesitant in moments in the first half of the fight. Going in moments that he probably shouldn't have went, and not going in moments that he should have went. Just finding, you know, I think an element of his focus was elsewhere, exterior, as opposed to being focused on actually in the ring. And I think you can see that by Josh keep looking out at the crowd. And we had a discussion in the corner about that, being focused, getting focused and focusing on what's happening in the ring. And when he made that adjustment and started, you know, being more physical and imposing his size, and not picking the right moments and when to go, there was a huge change in the momentum of the fight.
Josh straight ahead.
Josh, do you think with everyone talking about perhaps Jack should have won, will that take any shine for you off this achievement, or do you worry?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you know, Jack deserves all the praise he got because he done up and he turned well and he did better than everyone expected. You know, so fair play to him. And but he never won the fight, and I've told him that in the ring straight after the result. I says, well done, you done great, but you never won that fight. You know, so obviously he maybe thinks he disagrees, but I don't know. But I definitely told him straight away there and then, or after the decision as well. I says, well done, you done good, you fought well, but you never won the fight. But so I don't really care for what people think. I know I won the fight, and myself and the team know we won the fight. We know it was close. We know it wasn't our best performance, but we know we won the fight.
Josh, don't you have to agree?
George, you talk about moving up. Who would you like? You know, there's obviously some football terms, Crawford.
You know, listen, all the big fights, all the marquee fights are at 147. You know, even non-title fights at 147 are massive fights. You know, I feel I've earned the right to be in big fights now. You know, the way I've come up in my career, I've took all the risks. You know, very early on in my career, where other fighters would maybe possibly wait for this fight and that fight, I took all the risks. I've jumped in at the deep end, and it's been sink or swim, and I've learned that I can swim, and I'm definitely one of the best in the sport. Tonight wasn't a great performance, so I know everyone looking at that now, you know, coming up with and go, oh, Josh Taylor, easy fight. You know, had a close fight with Jack Catterall, blah blah blah. You know, and they're going to say, oh, that's an easy fight, but you know, trust me, that was far from my best. And when I move up to 147, I'm going to be a monster at it, and I'm going to be even better than I am now.
Tommy for sure.
Josh, obviously all the welterweight title belts are kind of tied up at the minute. Errol Spence and Ugas contest 3 of them. Crawford might get a harder fight to make because of litigation, etc. If there was no obvious title path for you, and given the feedback on the decision, do you foresee you possibly fighting Jack Catterall on 147 pounds?
Listen, we'll see what happens. You know, whatever's best for me at the time. But for sure, you know, listen, on my best performance, Jack Catterall gets nowhere near me. That was a 60% performance by me tonight. But I still won the fight. But on my best, you know, he won't beat me. That was Jack Catterall's peak. That was Jack Catterall's best ever performance he's ever going to produce. You know, so I don't mean that disrespectfully, you know, because I've got a huge respect for Jack, but I just know I am so much better than what I was tonight. You know, and in a 147, it's a different ballgame for me.
If you watch the fight back and you are more than unhappy than what you are right now, like if you look at it and you're just absolutely stung into the performance, do you think your pride might be better you and you want it back because it's not been clear that you necessarily weren't given the response from others?
I know in my heart that I won the fight. I know I won that fight, you know, so I'm not really caring what anybody else thinks. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. You know, I know in my heart that I won the fight. The only reason I'm a little annoyed is because I didn't put on a good performance. You know, I put on far too much pressure on myself on the lead up to this fight, with it being the homecoming, you know, and not being at home for a long time, and then being undisputed champion, and everyone turning up to see me after 2 years, a miserable 2 years, you know, and I put pressure on myself to perform in front of everyone. I said, I need to win, and it showed in the first half of the fight, but then I started relaxing and I scored the bigger shots and I was the boss in the fight.
That's an element of experience, and one thing that we all forget is that was Josh's 19th fight. It's easy to forget what he achieved. It's easy to forget what Josh achieved in 18 fights. That was his 19th fight. That's all part of experience and dealing with the pressure, and you know, such high expectations of Josh every single time he steps in that ring. That's part of experience.
I'm still quite experienced as a pro. Like you said, it's only my 19th fight, so yeah. But no excuses. It was a bad performance for myself. For my personal standards, I know I'm a million times better than that, and I know I'm one of the best fighters on the planet at my best.
Yeah, one question for Ben and one last one for Josh.
Hi there, Ben, October Red Boxing. A question for yourself: when Josh was coming back into the corner after the first couple of rounds, what was the change, if there was any, to the game plan to get that Josh back up on the scorecards?
We made an adjustment for Josh to tighten his hands up and press Jack a little bit more aggressively, use his physicalities and just up the tempo, make Jack work in moments that he didn't want to work. And that's what I was saying earlier. There was moments that, you know, it was clear that Jack didn't want to work, but Josh was slightly too hesitant. And again, I think that goes down to the pressure that he put on himself, not wanting to make any mistakes and such expectations on him. But once Josh gloved up and stepped to Jack, you know, I think it was clear to see that the tempo that Josh was able to maintain, the pressure he was able to produce, you know, it was very hard for Jack to handle, and I think that's when the change in the momentum happened in the fight.
Last question for Josh right here.
Josh, could you talk me through what you remember of the knockdown? I believe that's the first knockdown you suffered in your career, and also as a competitive person, you must have really hated giving that away.
Sorry, what was that?
As a competitive person, you must have really hated giving that away.
Yeah, I was annoyed with myself. You know, I was sort of off balance, down when he hit me, sort of down this way when he hit me, and obviously hit me and pushed me, and the force pushed me down onto the canvas. You know, so I got up, I was fine. I had all my faculties about me. I was totally fine, not hurt. Just seriously ticked off with myself at getting switching off and getting put down like that. And you know, I had to get a 10-8 round scored against me, which I was seriously ticked off about. You know, it wasn't a bad shot. I was just sort of down here like that when he hit me, and you know, off balance and hit the ground.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.